I'm Rachel Frick. I'm the Executive Director of the Research Library Partnership, and I'm really excited to moderate and introduce this panel about leveraging open access for the library community. We have with us today Tom Philllips, who's the Director of the Open Access Digital Theology Library. Dalia Corkrum, who's the Director of Whitman College Library. She's going to talk to us about LeverPress. And Cathy King, who's our Director of Delivery Services. And she's going to talk about what we're doing at OCLC to support and improve the user experience around open content. So the order of presentation is the order of introduction, and we're going to hold questions till the very end since we're having a shorter time session than originally scheduled. So with that, Tom.
Thank you. As she said, I am the director of the Open Access Digital Theological Library. I'm also the director of the Digital Theological Library and the dean of the library at Claremont School of Theology. The way all that relates, Claremont School of Theology is a seminary in the United Methodist tradition, a PhD granting institution. Like most seminaries, we're relatively small. Our FTE is in the 200, 250 range. So about 3 years ago, I was talking to our CFO, complaining I was buying all this excess capacity in digital content. So he said what we need to do is form a separate 501c3, which we did. And then I became the director of the Digital Theological Library, which is co-owned by a whole host of seminaries who run one corporate library licensing to the Digital Theological Library. In doing that, then we began to be very aggressive about curating OA content. And as we did that, when we got to about 100,000 ebooks, we said we got to share this with the world. So we became the first OCLC-powered, fully open access library. So when I called OCLC and said I wanted to start a new library, we had 7 billion patrons. They responded quite positively, and we created the first open access library. I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. I guess I should have hit my slides. Here's the URL for the OA DTL. That our mission is to make all open access content in religious studies and related fields. We do psychology, philosophy, history, anthropology, sociology, things that hit on the interdisciplinary nature of religious studies, and we do so without any confessional perspective whatsoever. Discoverable to everyone, everywhere in the world through a single search experience, OCLC's WorldShare, free forever in a non-commercial environment. That's our mission. And we're doing that by using OCLC's WorldShare as our discovery system. That as we began to get serious about curating OA content, what we figured out was there is a lot of great content out there that simply isn't discoverable because either it has really bad metadata or no metadata at all. At present, we have about 145,000 ebooks in the collection, 29,000 of those from the last 25 years, 19,000 from the last 10 years, so it's not all just old public domain stuff, 11,000 from the last 5 years, over 150 individual collections that we have curated. That the OA DTL is owned by the seminaries that own the Digital Theological Library that has proprietary content also. That, importantly, where do we get the content? We get it from university presses, many of which have a lot of their books open access, but they haven't cataloged them as open access in OCLC, so nobody knows. For instance, University of Chicago, their Oriental Institute has nearly 500 volumes open access on their website. If you go to University of Chicago's discovery system, you will not find a link to the ebook, that they're only available through the Open Access Digital Theological Library, because what we've done is gone out aggressively finding the websites where this OA content is hosted. Then we find the OCLC record, and then we add the URL, the stable URL to that record, simply change it from print book to ebook, add it to the OA DTL, and it's visible. That we have presses like Oxford and Gorgias Press. Most of these aren't available The ebook record simply didn't exist until we created it, so we've been very aggressive about creating these. Scholarly societies like the Study for Biblical Studies, the Society of Biblical Literature, the American Academy of Religion, the Pneumatic Society, museums like the Met. Many museums have books on, say, medieval art and architecture that are of interest to us in religious studies that we've included. Denominational archives. That we went live July 15th. When I checked our analytics just last week, we had use from about 3,000 uses a day from 84 countries to date. Now, I'll give you a quick, I'll run over the website here. Here is our website in the Discovery. By the way, we are OCLC, the only fully open access library powered by OCLC Discovery. Yeah, that's our claim to fame, but we would like the folks in the room to all set up discipline-specific open access libraries also, so that we could make OA content discoverable. I want to emphasize the issue with much OA is discoverability. Lots of people are talking about the infrastructure and talking about the systems for creating OA, but the real issue is getting it into our discovery systems in a way that people can find it. If you're a WMS library, we will share our collections with you, and we globalize many of them after we make them and after we do a second run through to proofread them. But if you're a WMS library, you can simply activate our collections in your Discovery. This is simply OCLC's Discovery. How many of you are WorldShare users? Yeah. That if you do an advanced search, and we limit to ebooks, we add about 10,000 a month. We have 2 full-time people whose sole job is to curate OA content, or the equivalent of 2 full-time positions. We have several part-time people.
Yeah, I don't think it's working.
What?
Up here, you still have your slide.
It didn't show up there?
No, it didn't.
I thought that, well, okay. Okay. Well, it's not displaying up there. We have about 145,000 ebooks in the collection. As I said, we're adding about 10,000 a month. These are all the kinds of books you would expect to be in a standard academic library. We do dissertations, we do museum collections, we do university presses, we do commercial presses. We have about 1,500 volumes from Brill. In our proprietary, and one point that may sell some folks on getting serious about curating OA content, we're working on a deal to buy all of de Gruyter's back titles, and you know how cheap those are. Yeah. To buy all of de Gruyter's back titles. And I said, well, we've curated a lot of these open access, so I want a discount for the things we already have. And they then gave us a discount, 50% off. Then they accidentally sent me the bill for another school. And when they did, they paid twice as much for the same collection as we did, simply because we had spent 15 or 20 hours curating the OA content, and our bill was nearly $50,000 less than the other school. Yeah. So a lot of people say they don't have time to curate OA content. I would say you don't have time not to, because if you're buying digital books, you can get the same content OA. For instance, the University of Chicago collection, that we created here, 433 titles are for sale through the various ebook vendors. They cost about $50,000, or you could simply activate the OA DTL collection for free. there are about 100 collections that are like that the identical content is for sale. Like if you have ProQuest early English books, all that content, with the exception of the math content, is in the open access digital theological library. If collectively we would work together to curate OA content, we could save our systems lots and lots of money. Last week I was at Berkeley at an OA conference. The University of California, the best funded library in the world, academic library in the world, have hundreds of librarians, thousands of employees. Do you know how many people they have to curate OA content in the entire system? Take a guess. One half of one person. Yeah. So my message is simply, let's curate OA content. If you're an academic library, if you'll simply add to your A to Z list the oadtl.org, you can use our content that's been curated. The metadata works. I know a lot of people activate an OA content, find the metadata so hopelessly corrupt that they end up turning off the collection because it gets so many false hits. That won't happen with the OA DTL because we don't use machine harvesters. We use professional librarians to curate the content. Okay, 10 minutes. I'm done.
I'm Dalia Corkrum. I'm the library director at Whitman College, which is a liberal arts institution in the state of Washington. Give me a lever and a place to stand, said Archimedes, and I can move the world. Several years ago, a group of liberal arts college library directors, despairing over the crisis in academic publishing, illustrated here by the dramatic decline in the output of scholarly presses, wringing their hands over failed efforts to reform the system and seeing the price of books from commercial publishers continue to outpace the rate of inflation, and kvetching about the millions of dollars they dispatch annually to the coffers of presses whose practices they oppose, decided to repurpose some of their acquisitions funds and create the lever that they lacked. The result? The Lever Press was launched in 2016. 54 liberal arts colleges, most of whom are members of the Oberlin Group of Libraries, spent 2 years studying the problems associated with current models of scholarly publishing, identifying alternatives, surveying faculty regarding their publishing needs, and finding publishing partners whose values align with our vision. We made a financial commitment to pledge 0.5% of our acquisitions budgets for 5 years in order to develop a digitally native press that places transformational scholarship at its core. Our member institutions focus on and are renowned for excellence in teaching and scholarship. We expect no less from our press. Before continuing, I should explain the organization primarily behind Lever Press. The Oberlin Group is a consortium of 80 liberal arts college libraries for the purpose of sharing information among the directors in a manner that encourages mutual support and collegiality. Members come from well-endowed institutions as well as those less generally resourced, with enrollments from 800 to 8,000 FTE. In the world of higher education, most of us are categorized as small. While we recently became officially incorporated as a 501c3 organization, this is still a very egalitarian and loosely organized group. The name comes from the location of the first group meeting in 1968 at Oberlin College. Our mission is, as an organization, is to promote libraries within liberal arts colleges and universities. For the last 10 years or so, the Oberlin Group has vocally and substantially supported efforts to provide free and open access to information resources. Members have lobbied Congress to advance open access to government-funded research, have supported the work of SPARC and other advocacy groups, and are currently the primary funders of the Lever Press initiative. For members of the Oberlin Group and a few other selected institutions to embark on launching a press was no easy matter. Few of us had previous experience with academic publishing, and no one had excess funding to develop to the project. It was our deep understanding of the flawed publishing system and our commitment to equity of access to scholarship that propelled the project. We currently fund the press and elect the representatives to govern it. The Amherst College Press runs the editorial side of the operation, and Michigan Publishing runs the production site. But the Oversight Committee, which sets policy, consists of library directors. The editorial board consists of established scholars with tenured appointments at supporting institutions. Earlier this year, a study of the state of open access monograph publishing revealed that of the 45 self-identified scholarly presses claiming to be open, only 19 indicated that their scholarship was peer-reviewed and that the press had some editorial board oversight. Further, only 15 of those were members of the Association of American University Presses, and only 3 followed a platinum open access funding model. The founding members of Lever Press made a commitment to totally funding the press. There are no submission fees, no download fees, no access fees, no fees of any kind. Only print-on-demand services involve a monetary exchange. The liberal arts ethos and the conviction that liberal arts remains relevant to all peoples undergirds the Lever Press's platinum open access commitment. All works published by the Lever Press are freely available to readers online immediately upon publication. I think it bears repeating that the Lever Press goes one step further than any other open access publisher. The Lever Press charges neither readers nor authors. All the costs of editing, acquiring, developing, and producing work are borne collectively by the supporting institutions, not by individual authors or granting agencies. The Lever Press will never charge an author or her institution for publishing with Lever. Platinum open access means works are considered solely on their merit, their scholarly merit. Because Lever covers the cost of producing the work it acquires, it selects works only because it has deemed that work worthy of investment. Lever Press aims for rigor in all matters. Although it rejects those traditional practices that limit access to scholarship, it embraces traditional practices that mark good publishing, such as active recruitment of good scholars, the commissioning of new work, vigorous and transparent peer review, developmental editing, stringent copy editing, and professional production. Our first publication reflecting all of these commitments is Robin Truth Goodman's Promissory Notes on the Literary Conditions of Debt, which was just published on October 17th. You'll note that in addition to citation and access information, the graphic in the lower left corner provides a clear indication of the level of peer review each publication has received. Our goal is to publish approximately 50 titles per year. And of course, all of these will be cataloged and be accessible through the Worldcat database. The Lever Press seeks out, identifies, evaluates, and advocates for transformative scholarship that spurs creative dialogue within and between traditional fields of inquiry, emphasizes disciplinary innovations, draws upon new models of collaborative research, and strives to reach the broadest audience possible. As such, we seek work that may not necessarily fit neatly within traditional disciplinary boundaries and work that speaks to a curious audience beyond the academy. To put it another way, Lever Press's editors explore intellectual connections across academic disciplines and divisions, champion works whose methods and modalities reach beyond the standard 100,000-word monograph, and inspire the close collaborations between faculty and undergraduate students. Unconstrained by legacy publishing processes, Lever publishes not only traditional narratives, but it also employs Fulcrum, the state-of-the-art digital platform developed at the University of Michigan Press to publish projects of digital scholarship not well served by scholarly conventions limited by print-only outcomes. In multimodal digital books, partnerships are developed by emerging communities of scholars in the digital humanities, linking together narrative analysis and data sets from a variety of disciplinary perspectives, and using new tools for visualization that actively engage readers. The Lever Press offers a case study in how a group of librarians can seize the initiative and make the changes they wish to see in an industry. In this case, the scholarly monograph publishing industry, creating changes that will have a big impact on our work as librarians and on the communities we serve. The press devotes itself to producing the highest quality scholarship in an economically sustainable model, embodying and reflecting the values of the liberal arts, and leading the way in establishing best practices for born digital, peer-reviewed, open access monograph publishing. It embraces diverse voices and viewpoints, it hews to the principles of equity and social justice, and it predicates its work on collective decision-making, working with the communities of members and beyond.
So I'm part of the product management group, and Tom and I were talking about, when I say product management, does anybody really even know what that means? And the answer is probably not. So my team is, in a nutshell, responsible for setting the vision and the strategy for the products and services that we offer to the community. And as we do that, we get the chance to collaborate with you all to set that direction. My team is responsible for Worldcat Discovery, which you saw on the screen, and as well as our resource sharing products, which is important as we talk about open access. So I'm going to give you a quick update as to what we're doing across OCLC for those products and services as it relates to open access. So first, we wanted to share with you a little bit about our process. How are we approaching what we're doing for open access? And it really started to, we formalized what we're doing for open access back in, I think this was February of 2018 or so. Char Booth came to OCLC and she presented at our distinguished seminar series. And I was going to have Rachel tell you all what that distinguished seminar series is because she's over it, but she does not have a microphone. So over the last, I think, 30, 40 years or so, we've invited people to OCLC thought leaders to come and present on their research that's either ongoing or just starting. And it's a fantastic series. And the good news is that you can all get access to this content, and I would really encourage you to go and look at Char's talk. She looks at open access, she examines open access really from a lens of information privilege. It was fascinating. I just watched it again yesterday. She's completely inspiring. Really, at the end of her talk, it was interesting to be in the audience at OCLC. So we have this great auditorium. You've got about 100 OCLC employees, as well as people from the local library market there. And she said, I implore you as OCLC people, and she didn't really call us out specifically, but she kind of did, to go back to your offices right now and start to help us solve these problems that I've laid out in front of you, which was a pretty powerful call to action. And she called us library allies. And I thought it was funny this morning as we talked about our pillars for this conference. And one of them is something like allies to advocates. And I really see us as great advocates for you in the library community as it relates to open access. So we had that call to action. And then maybe just a couple of weeks after that, we met with our global council. So 48 or 49 delegates came to Dublin, Ohio to have a global council meeting from across the world. And Rachel Frick and I had the opportunity to do some design thinking sessions with that group to talk about what trends or issues did they want us to help solve across the board. And open access was a huge theme. It really came out strong that Global Council would like us to take a look at solving some of these issues. So with those two calls to action, we thought we better formalize and do something about this in a really planful and strategic way. So we formed a cross-functional group at OCLC with really big aspirations and aspirations actually to just figure out what could we do quickly to solve some problems. Where are there low-hanging fruit items that we could tackle? So we wanted to first provide a working definition within OCLC about open access. So open access, as we talked about earlier, there's a spectrum of content that could be considered open access. Where did we want to start? We wanted to show where we were, what were we doing today? Turns out we were doing quite a bit. And where are we going? And again, how can we identify and deliver on quick win opportunities? So the first challenge that we thought we could impact was one that Char talked about. So she shared this graph. Ooh, it's automating. Oh, fancy. Okay, so she's very nice. This is from her presentation, but she had referenced an article here. So this is about Sci-Hub, and she talked about how Sci-Hub is a very easy and convenient experience, which is why it's seeing so many users coming to it to get illegal content. And so we really have to compete with that illegal convenience. And what's sort of blinking in front of you is it's a representation of the content that, well, let's say, it's a representation of the users who could otherwise get the licensed content in a non-illegal way. So what this shows is basically they're still going for the illegal route because it's convenient, even though they had access to this licensed content, which was fascinating. So we wanted to take on that challenge. And the other challenge is, how did we identify our data? As I said before, there's a spectrum. How do we identify this open access data so that we can surface it for users? As you mentioned, Tom, discovery is quite a battle. So for the first phase, we defined open. Rachel really spearheaded this. We said, open, this is what open means to us in this first phase of this quick wins that we could do. It's open, freely available, published, digital, accessible immediately and online, that sort of thing. Then we looked at the content that we have today. OCLC has a very large central index. Get something like 2.5 billion records in our central index. What of our central index could we identify as open access and feel really good that it is open access and fits that definition? So it turns out we had a lot. We had, I think it was something like 49 million ebooks, articles, et cetera, that we could identify as open access. So knowing that we wanted to solve the user problem and that we had identified quite a large set of content that we already had, we thought, okay, well, where's a quick win opportunity to really impact our products? So we focused on our end user products. As I mentioned, I'm responsible for Worldcat Discovery, also worldcat.org, where Worldcat Discovery is a product used primarily by academic universities. However, fun known fact, if you have a First Search subscription, which I'm sure everybody in the audience does, you can actually get access to Worldcat Discovery as well. And of course, worldcat.org is used by unaffiliated users, people out there on the web. We have 100 million people who come to this site per year. So how can we help with the discovery of open access on those two products? Well, the first thing we wanted to do was simply add a facet. Show me, this is Worldcat Discovery, by the way. You saw this earlier, fantastic. So we said we want to make the 49 million articles accessible and discoverable fairly easy. So we put a facet in for folks to use. Now, some librarians said, how useful is this? Well, I'll tell you the problem we were trying to solve here is an interesting one. We wanted to enable professors to find open access content. This was one of the problems we were trying to solve. Enable professors to find open access content so that they could create courses that were more affordable for their users. And so that's one of the things we've heard from libraries since we launched this just a week ago that they're trying to push out to their professor community. So it's not just about discovery, right? It's also about fulfillment. So once I find something, can I reliably get to it? You talked about adding links. Well, it turns out there's this great partner out there that we've signed a partnership with called Unpaywall. Who's heard of Unpaywall? Anybody? Okay, good. It's essentially they have the largest OA index. I think it's 100 million records within their index, and they've got really reliable links. So we wanted access to those links. We wanted to say, okay, if you surface something in that 49 million records that we have, we want a link that works really well because, again, we're trying to solve a convenience problem for the user. We want to make the user experience more convenient. So we've partnered with them, and that launched a week or so ago as well. And so if you find something and you click on this Access Online button, you will be taken to full text reliably thanks to Unpaywall. Very exciting. The other thing, if you ask me, the other thing that we're doing here is we want to make it easier, again, to identify this open access content in a predictable way so that we can continue to enable discovery and surface it. So the team has been working on a proposal, and this proposal is going back to ALA in midwinter to essentially update how we flag these records in MARC. So more to come after midwinter on that. Hopefully that is successful. I know that we took it in June and we had some feedback. So in a nutshell, that's what we're up to from a quick win perspective. But that's not where we're intending to stop. We really are intending to be advocates for the library community here. This was our first step, but we are also hoping to continue the conversation with the community. What problems should we solve? What's the most important thing to be solving? And I think it's next week, right, Rachel? Next week we're launching a global survey, open access survey, to get the opinions and the thoughts from our library community. So please keep an eye out for that. That will help to inform and guide our roadmap and make sure we're working on the most important things for everybody. So that's what we're up to at OCLC.
We've got about 10 minutes for questions for all of our panelists. So I was like, I love having time to have a little bit of a dialogue. And I'm going to run the mic, so let's go. Anybody have any questions? Just use the mic. It helps.
Yeah, we're streaming it too, so.
As a research library, we've been working at the federal level with open access for any research funded by federal agencies. And that's a huge body of research information that needs to be open access. Are you working is that duplicating what's already in Worldcat, or is there any connectivity to all the grant funding federal agencies and their data?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Rachel, do you want to take that or do you want me to? Rachel's also on the Open Access Committee.
Well, we're just trying to identify what those outputs are.
Yes.
So for us, we had 3 phases of the project. I'm going to slowly turn. So the first was traditionally published from publishers, those outputs. So collecting, so there is some traditionally open access from traditional venues, so publisher venues. Now we're going to be turning our attention to content that's published as open access from institutional repositories,
Yes.
preprints, postprints, those things that tend to be outputs from federally funded research. So it's going and trying to pick up all those research outputs and lift them through a discovery out. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's a different venue, and again, they just by law had to establish all their repositories. So some of them are already embedded in existing works. I'm not sure. It'll be complex.
Oh, yeah. It's not simple. That's why we're trying to do this discreetly and explore a little bit at a time.
It's really something we need.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We've talked about a crawl, walk, run strategy, right? The crawl was everything that we could easily identify, and then as you kind of go on.
Well, and I think that's what's important with the survey that's going to be coming out on November 7th. Just getting a temperature check. What should we be looking at? Who should we be working with as partners? I think strategic partnerships are going to be really important for us.
Yes.
And so, like I said, that survey is going to be live on November 7th. We have a web page that's going to be coming live, I think, later today, oc.lc, and I think it's /OA. If it's not today, it'll be a little bit later. So just to kind of give you, it's a website just to keep you up to date on what our open access activities are. Here.
Spin-off question. You mentioned about the institutional repositories that you'll be trying to access. Are you grouping them by, maybe academic libraries? You don't know yet. Okay.
We're still working.
Hi. Is OCLC looking at, so Internet Archive earlier this month published a white paper on, if I can describe it well, purchasing in copyright books that publishers are not transforming to digital, buying a copy, putting it, and lending. So they're taking a print copy, digitizing it, and lending the digital copy because they own the print copy, and they'll do up to 3. Is OCLC looking at something like that? So it has to get tested in the courts, perhaps.
Right.
Internet Archive can do that. But if it passes the test.
Google Books comes to mind, yeah.
Yes. Would OCLC look at supporting libraries so I'm at a Botanic Garden Special Library.
Yes.
A lot of our materials are not ever going to be digitally produced by their publishers.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think Google Books does come to mind, but I go back to the survey, actually. So we are really looking for that exact type of input. So we haven't necessarily said we would or wouldn't. We're always open to collaborating in the way that it makes sense.
We also have a strong relationship with Internet Archive, so we're always talking to Brewster about
Yes.
possibilities.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Polly Thistlethwaite from the CUNY Graduate Center and a member in the IDS Resource Sharing Network. And it's just clear that librarians are sort of the original innovators of open access in that we've always collaborated with Worldcat, with OCLC as like an initial membership organization to collaborate on our local library work and our resource sharing. The physical copies. And that the physical copy sharing is a precursor to the digital copy sharing, the whole ethic about it. So I'm just wondering, like, how does OCLC work to continue with that sort of original membership-driven collaborative resource sharing vision of the print copy while also developing these digital copy sharing, open sharing platforms? And, is there anything that, I know that there's local development to enhance the OCLC software.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, how do you plan to work with communities or with the library community to continue to make these sorts of functions work?
It's an important question, and one in which I actually just sent about 10 emails about this morning. So OCLC recently reorganized, and I've taken on the resource sharing products since the last month or so, and that's an important topic. We're looking at what is our vision and what is our strategy for resource sharing as it relates to all of the things that you just brought up, and how can we enable libraries to collaborate in groups, that sort of thing. So we are creating a plan right now, a collaboration plan and an engagement plan with our community that will essentially input into that roadmap. So I'd love to hear your thoughts offline, but we are looking to up the game in our collaboration across all of our services, especially the resource sharing. I hope that helps. Yes, I agree.
And something we already do well.
Yes, yes. We don't want to, we want to enhance it and make it better. Change the game, right? But yeah, that requires collaboration with the community, and that's something we're very interested in enhancing.
Hi, Matthew Sheehy back here in the back. My question is about accessibility and how accessibility fits into your definition of open access. Is there a standard that you have before you'll include something in the indexes that you're building?
When you say accessibility, I immediately go to web accessibility. Is that what you mean, or the ability to actually just get to it?
So a lot of these open access resources are PDF files, and anyone who's tried to create an accessible PDF file understands the labor that goes on behind it. So my
Right.
question is, when you're looking at these items and you're considering them open access, do you have an accessibility standard that you put against it? Or is anything that's available for free considered open access?
I don't have a great answer off the top of my head. Rachel, do you?
I'm looking to Tom and Dalia too, because I think that affects them as well. I mean, in Lever Press, when they're providing it open access, are you thinking about standards for accessibility on the web?
We are. Everything is, because we're publishing in Fulcrum, and that gives us the ability to move beyond the standard PDF. And so the ADA standards are very much part and parcel of that publishing platform. So hopefully, this is our first book, and we'll we're basically testing it as we go forward, but we are moving beyond standard PDF.
You raise a very important point. So we ensure that Worldcat Discovery itself is accessible and compliant. The content, is it accessible and compliant, is a great question to be asking. Do you have any thoughts? No.
That's a good way to leverage the community, because I think sometimes you have to look at the thing to see if it is, or have it, if it's being produced. I know one thing, it was an ILL conversation about resource sharing and how, like, different workflows when they create the PDF for sharing, running it through an accessibility program, so when it shows up on the institution on the other side, it was fully compliant with accessibility.
Typically, people who have low vision or can't read PDFs have the software on their personal computer to make that accessible anyway. And what we do at Claremont, for anyone who reports an ADA issue with low vision or something, we simply supply the software for them, and we haven't had any complaints. So that rather than solving it within the system, we tend to solve it with the individual. Now, when you're talking about in the open access context, obviously you can't do that for everyone in the world, but institutionally, we haven't found that to be a problem, that we solve it at the local user level individually.
Yeah, that's something to consider as we go to enhanceworldcat.org, and you talk about the general public. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Very good questions.
Concerns, comments? Any last words from the panelists?
No, just thank you, and I really do look forward to seeing the results of that survey that we're sending out. This should be very interesting.
Cool.
I would just emphasize the limits of the technology, that we really need professional librarians to get involved and to work on these records. Even now, if you click on the open access filter on WorldShare or on WorldCat, a lot of the stuff doesn't have a View Now link, and that's because librarians haven't gone in and added the link. We really do, there are limits to what technology is going to do. We still need professional librarians who invest their time and energy in making this stuff discoverable and accessible.
And I would just add the importance of allocating resources, not just to enhance records, but to creatively think about changing the publishing paradigm. We don't have to always accept what's offered to us, and it's a bold new world when you take acquisitions dollars and decide you're going to invest in a press, but we did because we felt so strongly that we're not seeing the kinds of books we want, and they're not accessible, and so we bit the bullet, and stay tuned. We'll talk to you in 5 years and see how successful we were.
Join me in thanking this panel speakers, and with that, we're turning you back over to lunch. Thank you so much.